G'day Internet, welcome to another episode of Morgan Makes. My name's Morgan, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we're having a look at these Izumi Denki control boxes. Did a restoration job on these. These came out of a factory off for a piece of machinery somewhere. They were pretty scummy, so let's have a look at them, eh? This is an Izumi Denki code KGN type control box pair, part number T20-13, another unknown from my collection of old electrical switchgear. They are, or rather were, used for a remote stop-start operation of machinery. As for what machine they came off, your guess is as good as mine. These two units have clearly seen better days, so let's open them up and take a look what's making that rattle, eh? The Izumi Denki Co. was founded after World War II in Japan in 1947, and they obviously made and sold electrical switches. You may know them today as IDEC Electronics, a name that they established in 1975 but didn't use on products made for the English-speaking market until 1982. And because this pair of switches has the original Izumi Denki branding, I'm going to assume that they predate the 1980s. The fact is, you can actually still buy this control box brand new. Don't fix what ain't broke, I guess. Let's see what's inside. How well did they hold up to the test of time? Opening the first one up, it's good to find that the rattle was just the mounting screws left inside the enclosure. No spiders this time, but it's very dirty in here. The mechanism still works relatively well on this one, so with any luck I won't need to strip this one down entirely. We can remove the old conductors, and it's handy that they're labelled, and it's even more handy that I'm recording this so I can refer back to it later. And because they are metal enclosures that could be running 3-phase, but more likely running 240-volt control for the relays, they have internal earthing lugs that need to be removed. All the screws that can be cleaned will be cleaned in the autoclave. I'll strip the paint off and then do a vinegar soak to remove the rust. This feels like mild steel, so that should not take all week. The other unit, however, is in far worse condition. The green button does not always stay in the on position, and it sounds a lot more rattly than the other one. Most of the rattle again was caused by the mounting screws left inside the enclosure, but the mechanism itself still has a little bit of a rattle to it. I guess I'm going to have to open this one up after all. So like I did with the first one, I stripped it down as far as it was a go. Removing the rubber seals around the buttons was tricky, as they had hardened over the years. These will be easy enough to restore. Once the buttons are removed, I can get rid of the old conductors. Again, these are labelled, which is fantastic. I hate Sparkies who never label cables. The screw terminals on this side have a lot of carbon buildup. Maybe this one had a hot joint at some stage. Now I have the buttons free, it's time to strip them down another layer and find out what's making that noise. It looks like these two long brass screws hold the two halves together. And I was honestly ready for everything to just fly everywhere under the spring pressure when I undid them, but I was pleasantly surprised that there was a small pair of nylon washers holding the spring-loaded contactor in place. Now I have the unit in half, it's easy to see where the noise is coming from. There are these little windows on the sides that allow you to see the physical position of the armature and the contactor inside. Now I can just see through the dust in the unit to see that two of the little spacing lugs that make the initial contact with the other side of the plate have fallen off and are just chilling in there, so we need to mount a rescue and remount them. Carefully removing the nylon washers while holding down the contactor, I was able to remove the springs without them flying off the edge of the world. The lugs are now free to just fall out. It's a good thing they're from the side I just removed, and I won't need to remove the other side just to put them back. Using my pliers, I was able to crimp them back into place. A little bit of contact cleaner on a Q-tip gets a good amount of the carbon scoring off the brass. I also take this chance to clean the little windows. Putting it back together, the motion feels a lot nicer and it doesn't rattle anymore. I call that part a success. Now that I have a fair idea what's going on, I repeated the cleaning process for the first switch that I took apart. Now it's time to work on the enclosure itself. It's very dirty and kinda rusty. It makes me think that it was once installed outside, but not in direct weather. I wonder what kind of machine it came off. I removed the little pieces of steel conduit that remained. They're garbage. I do want to recover these cool looking conduit adapters though. They look hardcore. Yeah boy. Moving on to some of the other bits. Some of these ring parts feel a little bit light to be made of iron, so they're probably aluminium. They also aren't rusted, so I say that's a fair safe bet. This means that I'll need to de-rust these guys separately, but first I'm going to tackle the enclosures. Before I do that, I need to remove the old labels and stickers from the outside. I want to be able to use them again, so I'm very carefully peeling them off with a paint scraper. Using my trusted Potter paint stripper and a cheap brush from the reject shop, first I dust the filth off, and then I start the rather painful process of stripping as much of this paint off as I need. Now I was wearing latex gloves for this part, and it probably wasn't the smartest choice I've made this week. It would only take about 10 to 15 minutes before the paint stripper had eaten through them and it was starting to burn my hands. And then when I was about halfway through the second stripper treatment, I remembered that I was using a paint scraper to prep these not just 20 minutes ago. Well, that sped things up. But because of the odd shape of some of the metal, it took several treatments and I was still not able to remove all of the paint. She'll be right though, it's good enough. Now it's time for the vinegar. Normally I would use double strength vinegar, but my local Coles was sold out, so normal vinegar will have to do. My tub was 3 litres and I only bought 2, so I'll need to go back later to Savo to fill it completely. But I got lazy and I left it overnight. But during that time, my local Coles was able to restock the double strength vinegar, so we're going to top that up and remove all of the rust. This also gives me enough extra to do the other pieces as well. It turns out that the rust was just sitting on the surface and wipes off with the paper towel. The first soaking treatment removed a lot of the rust and the excess paint, but there's still some stubborn parts that are resisting removal. So back in the bath they go. Now let's see what's going on in the other tub. This is the one with all the suspected aluminium parts. For the most parts, they came out great, very clean. One still has a little bit of blue paint on it. These parts never got hit with the paint stripper, but I don't mind, it just adds a little bit more character. I did mess up a little, however. These lock nuts here aren't aluminium. They appear to be made of cast iron, and as such they took on all of the oxidization from the aluminium. To correct this, it was simple enough as running a fresh bath for them and letting them soak for a day by themselves. And to give the aluminium a bit of shine and to protect it against further corrosion, they'll all get a liberal spray with WD-40 and a rub down with the paper towel. They came out great and are ready to go back where they came from. But first we need to finish painting the rest. One last pass on the body parts with the paper towel and the Q-tips to get the paint out at the seams as best I can. This soft steel starts to corrode super fast without any kind of protective layer, so they came out of the bath one at a time, got a thorough wipe down and then immediately got a spray with a woodland grey metal shield. All the parts got multiple coats of paint to make sure that no metal was exposed to air. I don't want these things rusting up on me.
Now let's talk rust-proofing. These Colecos will rust up on you like that. Shut up, Gil. Close the deal. Close the deal.
Then nature decided to rain on my parade. Literally. We've had some wild weather here in the last few months and a windstorm came out of nowhere and put a bunch of little leaves and stuff on my paintwork. That was annoying, but I managed to clean it up pretty good. That adds a little bit more character, I guess. I'm also going to give it a hit with the matte clear coat just to help protect it a little more from scratches. I wasn't overall happy with the quality of this metal shield. It chips super easy. If I ever come back to these, I will have to give them a different spray job. Subscribe to the channel to see if I ever do. Now while all that paint is curing, I'm going to work on the last little details. Mainly the labels and the seals. Now the seals weren't as in a bad condition as I initially thought, but I'm going to give them a treatment with machine oil just to give them a little bit of life back. A small amount on the end of a Q-tip and then a rub down. That cleans them at the same time too. Nice. Using a little bit of IPA, I cleaned up the original labels that I'd removed before. They're ready to go back on after just a single wipe down. And now it's time to finally put it all back together, starting with the conduit adapters on the side of the main enclosure. I painted the cast iron part of the lock nut system with a satin black metal shield just to make them stand out a bit and protect them against future corrosion. Once that was all in place, I could replace the buttons on the cover part of the mounting block. I became slightly confused at this stage as I couldn't remember which way the rubber seals faced, but a quick double check of the footage and a little bit of logical problem solving sees the buttons reseated properly. The button lock rings are screwed down and then the two halves are finally closed. Using a small amount of glue applied to the back of the now clean labels and a little bit on the surface, they look almost as good as new. Now with the magic of editing, a type of voodoo that I feel I'm getting better at. Where there was one, with the snap of a finger, now there is two. Despite my misgivings about this one, they look far better than I expected. They're obviously reconditioned, but that adds to the charm. They have a story to tell. Like, where did that dent come from? These will definitely become part of a future project, so stay tuned. I'm actually super happy with how these came out. You know, they almost look brand new. I'm not sure I'd trust them with 3-phase or full 240 again, but a 12-volt control circuit, absolutely. Look forward to another video coming up where I use them in another project. Well, that does it for this episode, guys. My name's been Morgan. This has been Morgan Makes. I hope you have a fantastic day, and take it easy, guys. I'll see you next time. Cheers.